Recording or on or whatever. We love it. Right, ready? All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Can you take roll, please?
Mrs. Leskowitz,
Here.
Mrs. Butler,
Here.
Mrs. Donahue,
Here.
Mrs. Reed,
Here.
Mrs. Kiplinger.
Here. Okay, stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic that stands under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Did we have that little microphone that we had last? Like,
there.
oh, yeah, sorry. Okay, I didn't see it.
Needs to go
Thanks.
down here. They can usually hear us. I think it's more.
Keep away from the mallet.
We're done with the
We're
mallet.
down.
You want to use it as the.
Yeah. Out of my reach. All right, next we adopt the agenda. So can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll move. Kiplinger.
Second.
Any discussion? Can you take roll, please?
Mrs. Leskowitz,
Yes?
Mrs. Butler,
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mrs. Kiplinger.
Yes.
Next, could I get a motion to approve the minutes from the March 17, 2025 regular meeting?
I'll move.
The minutes I'll second.
Any discussion?
I just want to say, I know this is a new format. What I didn't see is a lot of discussion on some of the items, well, on any of the items, and I'd like to see that expanded maybe in the future. It's just kind of, oh, well.
Treasurer's actually. I do topics. I don't do lectures on them. So I mean, we can talk about the general topics. But I don't get into paragraphs and paragraphs of what's said.
Well, then,
It is light on details.
yeah, and that's
Yeah.
what, I'm used to that, and that's the only good way we have to look back
We
and
record
see
We
what
recorded,
some of the
yeah.
record was.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, especially when I go to use minutes or auditors go to use minutes, we're looking for actions as much as possible. Now, we want to know what's the context of any type of discussion. But you really want the business of what you're doing and
Well-
not paragraphs of
Yeah.
ongoing discussion back and forth.
yeah, and it doesn't have to be a paragraph, it could be
Yeah.
just one statement.
Yeah.
Especially if there's discussion between the board members, I'd like to see that captured.
Yeah.
Just in a statement of some sort.
Yeah, general topics, yeah.
Yeah, just, it doesn't have to be,
Just like there was a discussion about blah, 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 or
Yeah.
whatever.
That type of stuff.
yeah. Because that's what we'll go back and look at. And that's our actual recorded record for the future.
Any other
Thank you.
discussion? Oh, sorry. Any other discussion? Okay, will you take roll, please?
Mrs. Leskowitz,
Yes?
Mrs. Butler,
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue,
Yes,
Mr. B,
Yes.
Mrs. Kiplinger.
Yes. I'm sorry, my agenda is for the work session.
Well, and that was just sitting in there. See what else we got here.
Oh,
Oh, that's why.
I just went to write something down. I'm like, it's not here.
Not the right one.
So everybody.
Yep, I got 14.
Okay.
that's okay.
Someone put the other stuff.
Thank you.
How many of those I need?
One more.
Oh, God.
Thank you, sir.
One last stuff.
I believe so. I'll just take it all. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
You got me wondering, what am I taking them back? I'm good to go.
Okay,
Yes.
no problem.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, thank you. Oh, do we have any public participation of the agenda items?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, sorry. Okay, Julie.
Good evening. Thank you.
Let me speak. So actually, I had a couple comments on the minutes as well. Some places are very thorough and some were a little skimpy. One thing was referring to the list of items like A through F on the consent calendar and, just saying it got approved. That seemed kind of lacking in detail, and there was no link to the document containing the list or saying where to find it. So I would hope at a minimum, maybe that just those, at least a list of items could be copied in there as to what was voted on. And there are other links in the document that were great, like for the minutes and the financial reports and the contracts and so on. A couple questions. There's 2 new food service workers listed for 6 hours and 4 hours. I was just wondering if you could explain why new positions this late in the school year and why 6 hours rather than 4 hours, which is what they typically are. And if you could explain the logic for extended days for the ELL coordinator, that would be appreciated. And also why 15 extended days for the middle school guidance counselor. This has typically only been done for high school in the past due to unique requirements related to ensuring that all the graduation requirements are met for the students. On the policies on 0152 for the officers, for the president part, one was calling special meetings of the board. I believe this violates the ORC 3313.16, which states that any 2 board members may also call a special meeting. So the policy makes it sound like only the president of the board can do that. Sorry, Jackie, I can't see you today, so I know I'm supposed to address you. Appointing all the committees. The board president only appoints members for board committees and ad hoc committees. Ad hoc committees are basically board committees. They're temporary with one specific goal, like strategic planning. You might create an ad hoc committee for. The president does not appoint for committee of the whole, where all the board participates, standing committees, those where you get board members appointed at the organizational meeting, or administrative committees, which are those that report to the superintendent, treasurer, or other district administrators. For the assist in the preparation of the board agenda item, I believe this should include the condition that other board members are consulted and have input to the process of determining what goes and does not go into the agenda. Any board member should be permitted to add any topic to a work session agenda. The president should not be acting unilaterally. The board is tasked with operating as a board, not as individuals. And one thing that's missing in the past, the boards had always agreed that the president would speak on behalf of the board outside of board meetings. So for instance, press request, a newspaper comes with a reporter. So that was not in there. I didn't know if you wanted to continue that philosophy or not. Just keep in mind, this does not mean that the president speaks their own opinion, but speaks a consensus of the board opinion. But it does prevent 5 board members from being called up and answering a question differently. They can just say, oh, our policy is you go to the president. For policy 166 on the agendas, in board docs, currently 166 is called executive session, so that was a little confusing. Looks like this is a new one, so I don't know if there's a numbering issue or what. But the text states 2 days rather than 2 business days for the agenda to be distributed to the board members. My feeling is that this should be extended to at least 3 business days, excluding the day of the meeting. So the agenda should be ready by Wednesday if the meeting is on a Monday. This allows the board members appropriate time to review and research agenda items. And also all the policies should follow consistent update notations, including the adopted date, the last revised date, and a list of revision dates. Some are at the top, some are at the bottom, and some are missing the revised date list altogether. As always, thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. That was it, right?
Yeah, so I see.
And then we're, next is the superintendent's report.
So first of all, we've got the speaker working today. We have ordered microphones. We've tried to troubleshoot several different areas to help with the sound, but microphones have been ordered. So each of you will have your own microphone at the next board meeting. So that should integrate into the streaming as well. Okay. So that's that. And the only thing I have for my superintendent's report, I'm going to kick this over to Bob. We were talking with a little bit about just the funding and the earned income tax renewal levy. Like I said, with the circumstance where they are, we're doing the best we can with the information, but I'm going to kick that over to Bob for to give us some insight.
All right. So as we mentioned last week, the state budget was approved, the Wednesday prior to that through the House. Now it goes over to the Senate. That will start up next week. They're on a 2-week break. This being the second week. And we talked about last week, what were some of the key issues and concerns out there? The biggest one being the decision to put any district that has a carryover balance above 30% at June 30 this year, that would go back as a rollback on taxes this year. That's a problem for 460 some districts right now in the state of Ohio, to the tune of some $5 billion. The short-sightedness of that particular proposal is it's one time. And so it creates cash flow issues, certainly for those districts. And what they don't know when you look at one point in time is what's happening the next year in any particular school district. Are you in a point in your levy cycle where the following year you're going to be in deficit spending? So maybe you're going to spend down as a district a couple $1 million the following year. This proposal doesn't take that into consideration. It's going to shoot you down to that 30% number, and then you're going to go below it. So if this is something they want to do, it would have to be phased in over time to be effective. It also needs to be a range. It's simply just not one number because it's different for every district in the state of Ohio. They're not all the same by any means. So we'll see what the Senate does with this. I anticipate this budget to run the full length of time. I think it's going to be late June before it comes out, even though they're running ahead right now. I think things will slow down as we go through this next process because you ultimately have to go to conference committee. So we'll see how aligned the Senate is. But with some of that in mind, I wanted to bring the board update on some key financial indicators. So I've provided you some information. Mike and I have been talking about some different things, and one of the big things is your income tax collection history. And what does that really mean to this district? It's been about 2.45 million the last 2 years. It might hit as much as 2.6 million this year. We'll see when that final spring payment comes in here pretty soon. But that's the way it's tracking at the moment based upon what I'm seeing from last year. That represents about 11% of your annual revenue stream. So yes, your income tax levy is significant. And does do good things for your district and is a material portion of your general operating revenue. I then started looking at the CUP report and getting familiar with the district. The CUP report has a lot of information on it. If you go out to the Ohio Department of Education website, never look that up. It's got 2 pages of all types of percentages and variances and how you compare to similar districts, how do you compare to the state average. And so I pulled out expenditure per pupil. That's one of the ones that's widely recognized and is easy to understand. It's how much are you spending per pupil in Bethel relative to similar districts. You're spending $10,136.67. Similar districts spent $14,602.97. This was in 24. This 24 day latest stuff available. State average was $16,310.87. You extrapolate that out based upon your ADM, and the cost was $19.5 million. The similar districts, if you would have spent what the similar districts did, you would have spent $28.15 million. So you can see that you're providing quality education, you're doing it at a lower cost. And if you did the state average, you'd have been at $31.4 million. So certainly the data shows that the district is cost effective. Another measurement you always kind of want to watch is salary and fringes combined as a total percentage of operating expenditures. And in some districts, we've seen those climb to over 80%. In this particular case, you're at 73.3. Similar districts are at 77.8, and the state average is at 78.74. So you're achieving some of those, obviously some of those lower cost per pupil because you're achieving some efficiencies in your salaries and fringe benefits. But those are just some numbers to keep in mind and to watch going forward. How do they move? Another discussion we've been having is, I was wondering where's enrollment going? And so Mike provided me a long history of of enrollment. And these enrollment numbers are kids on campus. And we call them butts and seats in a lot of school districts when we do counts. And that helps you look at, your student teacher ratio in the various classrooms at the grade levels, things of that nature, which gets into a much more detailed report than what I have before you here tonight. This is just simply the district overall. And if you're looking at the report, it says using average number of additional students. It goes down through it and it simply calculates what's the difference this year versus the previous year in actual number of students. So it starts off with a +4 and 24, 25, you had an additional 157 this year. If you went back the last 5 years, and admittedly 2021 is an outlier, it was COVID, who knows what happened there, but you only had 12 additional students that year. You had 103 additional the year before and 113 the year after. So it's really a number that is outside the norm. But even using that 5-year history there, it's 101 students a year. Significant, steady growth. And then as I looked at that, I looked at those percentages that it calculated out to, and I was seeing, 7s, 9s, 3s, and 8s up there. And all of a sudden they were down, 4.89, and obviously they're going to slowly go down if you use a hard number each year. And so I got to wondering, well, what if we used an average, the 5-year average of 5.8%, and applied it to these numbers, and your count goes from a projected count in 5 years of 2569 to 2751. Maybe somewhere in between. There's certainly a lot more sophisticated ways to be doing this. This is just a quick look at it to get an idea of where you've been. Certainly, the historical data is good to know, but there's certainly growth going in the district, and something you're going to have to watch. So, kind of stay tuned. What's going on with the state budget? Again, there are some things out there that just are not good. They're reducing the financial forecast from 5 years to 3. Some people would think that's great, but what it's really doing, it's chopping off the 2 years that show the most negative outcomes. And I think we all agree that the further out you get on the forecast, obviously the less reliable the data is, but it does give you a general direction where you're headed. And I can say in our book of business that I deal with on the other side, not with you guys, but with my other client, we're typically finding we're getting to them 2 years too late. And they're deep into it by that time. So that's why it's important to be looking at those and to be reacting to your forecast. React to it early, because the cut made today multiplies, just as the salary increase or the expenditure increase that's annualized multiplies. So that's why you do those things. I always call it right sizing, incremental adjustments, however you want to call it, but do those bit by bit every year, paying attention to your finances, and you stay away from that financial cliff. And that's what you always want to stay away from, because it's not pretty when they get there. And I've watched and I'm helping districts that are dealing with that, and it's painful for them. So that's not an issue for you. It's solid right now, but again, we're going to have to continue to watch as the state budget comes through. And Mrs. Logan will be here tomorrow. She's going to begin working through the process of the update on the forecast. So we'll be working through that rather quickly at this point to have some information for you in May.
Did you say it's already been approved to cut it to the 3 years?
No,
or they're
that's
wanting to.
No, that's what the House proposal is.
Okay.
You get the governor's budget, he sends it to the House. The House has their hearings, passes it, they send it on to the Senate. That's where we're at right now. The Senate will look at it, they'll have hearings, they'll come up with their version. Their version never matches the House version. Then they go into what they call caucus, and 3 members from each side go into a room and pretty much don't get to come out until it's done. And that's the way it works. So that may go on for a couple of days. Things get hammered out that way. I've never seen it. It's called conference committee, it's technically called. And I've never seen it not go to conference committee. Some are quicker than others. And the worst I think I've seen is first week of July. very rare to see it go into July. Anything else you'd like to talk about?
That's all I have. Case. Thanks, Bob. Student recognition, want to recognize, got a lot going on here, but I know that, Mrs. Snyder's, second grade class, they, won the math challenge. They took first place for the state in the month of March. I want to tell them congratulations. Also the Wizard of Oz, the crew and musical had about 75 students in it roughly, and also want to recognize the elementary kids playing the Munchkins.
They were so cute.
Nice. Yeah,
Typecasting.
it was good. Layla Norris for outstanding leadership as a stage manager, and Evelyn Wilburn for outstanding leadership as student tech director, and Dalton Dill for going above and beyond, installing new lights, equipment over spring break for the production. So, like I said, a lot of good stuff, but we could sit here for hours, but I did want to recognize the elementary kids for the math and the Munchkins and kids that helped with the crew and cast. So it was a good shot. So I saw it was pretty awesome. So congratulations. Important dates. Proms at 7 o'clock on the 26th. And then again, May 6th is the levy. So there'll be remote learning for middle school and high school. And I talked about this last week. Elementary will be on a regular session. Saturday, May 10th is the alumni banquet here in Bethel Hall. May 13th is the last day for seniors. May 14th through the 16th are exams, and the final day of school will be Friday the 16th. Graduation will be at 5 p.m. on the 18th at Hobart Arena. So those are important dates.
Board members required to chaperone?
That is up to them.
Okay.
They'll be there.
Great. Treasurer's report?
Well, thank you. Well, let's just start at the beginning. Monthly financial report. Let's make it simple. I'm just getting used to what those various names are because they always pop up something a little different. Okay, this one is basically the graphics piece. So we'll just kind of look at that real quick. Revenue, as far as on the revenue side, the big numbers are in, that being the spring settlement, what they call the first half settlement. And that came in within $28,000 of last year. So I see numbers like that on your book of business. It could be simple timing. That doesn't concern me, because when we go back and we look at forecasts and particularly this particular line item, we'll look at collection rates and things of that nature, and they'll change, and a slight percentage can change, just a fractional percent can throw you that way. So that came in fairly close to what last year was. State funding's up about $1.4 million, and that's due to your additional enrollment plus whatever the factors were that increased in the state budget in the second year. Again, we'll see this last tax payment here in April. I kind of think it's going to be in the $600,000 range. I think you're going to do fairly well on that based upon just last year's trend, unless for some reason last year's was an aberration and was for some reason high. So we'll wait and we'll see on that one. But again, some of the big numbers are starting to fall, and that's helpful. Moving on down towards the expenses. I just talked through all that. Salary and benefits, certainly going to be up through 9 months because we gave raises. But they are running, 75% through the year, and we're 73.4% on salaries and fringes. Still going to probably pay some supplementals, things of that nature. So that all sort of makes sense at this point. Computer supply purchases are up just over $33,000. Not a big issue there. I know we did approve shortly after I arrived a purchase that may have gone through now. That was in the $90-some thousand range.
Chromebooks.
Yeah, Chromebooks, and we wanted to get that done very timely because we were about to see a price increase. So we did achieve that. And again, purchase services. The state's just begun to settle with the district's excess costs, threshold costs. In fact, we're working on those as we speak. So that's the way that report is running. Let's go to the think it's called the general fund report. At least that's what my title says. This is the source document that is generated from. And it's a document like this that I want to take you to that really gets right in on, and I'm starting to mess with it today. It gets right in on exactly the financial forecast line items. This one has a couple things that are pulled out. It has tuition and open enrollments pulled out. That's not a forecast line item. And it's really not even a material line item in your particular case. So I would like to see it go right directly in parallel with the financial forecast, because things make a lot of sense when you start looking at this that way. This is fairly close to what it is. So, your real estate taxes again, within 28,000. That you can see that 28,163 less than last year. You just saw that on the previous graphic. You basically made that up in tangible personal property taxes. So you're about 11,700 to good, maybe 650 to good there between those two line items. The income tax, as I said, that's doing better than last year at this time. So you can see you had a 1.8 million last year at this time, 1.974 million right now. So it means in both cases you were still waiting for that final piece to drop. And you ended up at 2.4 million last year. So I've mentioned the 600,000. I think 605,000 is what you got, as I recall the number. So we'll wait and see. Do we perform as good as last year in that final payment, or less than? And that will decide it. Tuition and open enrollment, again, those largely are going to be functions of the state foundation formula payments. Other receipts, and I would typically have this one probably down a little lower, because you can go ahead and keep me up there on the revenue for a minute, even though I said the word lower. I would have other receipts down further, and I would really accentuate the importance of state funding, and where those numbers are running. You're up from last year, and a particular number, you got 8.891 million right now, running very close to budget. When you look at 8.866 is what the budget thinks. And here's a case where dividing by 12 actually works, because they do pay you that way. Homestead and rollback, again, you're going to see another payment come in for that. It's running consistent with where it was last year, then $5,000. It just is an indication when you look at the overall budget that there is one more payment to be received, and that would make sense because we just received the second half, or the first half settlement. And then when I say first half settlement and second half settlement, those are county terms or county auditor terms. They run on a calendar year basis. So when you get that spring settlement, it's first half. When you get the August one, it's second half. It's just backwards to how school districts operate, but it is something you have to pay attention to, because it can have impact. Again, nothing big going on transfers or advances. Other receipts state, and again, nothing too. We are certainly doing better than last year, $258,000 better than last year, and we'll continue to watch it. It would appear that we've got a good shot at certainly hitting that target of 1.33 million in these final 2 months. So, any questions on the revenue side? The expenses, yeah, you were at 17 million so far this year. Looking at the salaries and wages, we're currently at just over 9 million. 5 months in, or 9 months in, you would kind of expect to be at 9.5 million. So running a little better than planned there right now. It's always good when the numbers come in lower, but certainly you got some things coming in towards the end of the year. And things that I have not looked at this point, because we're not quite there. What kind of payouts do you have year end and vacation? Certainly we may have, like I said, another supplemental payment coming here. That would not necessarily track into this process that they use of dividing by 12. So you usually do have a spring supplemental payment, and that will narrow the gap when that occurs here. And that's probably If not late May, probably early June is my guess. Fringe benefits are estimated at 3.48. They're running at 3.68. A little bit high, but not overly alarming to me. And purchase services running a little bit better than planned. Again, the rest of them you kind of look at there. There's nothing too exciting in those at this time. We'll continue to monitor them, and again, we'll be interested to see exactly how that forecasted update comes. And it's a fun time of the year to do it. You've got a lot of the data, and you can get a lot of knowns at this particular time of the year. You can really hone in on where you're going to land, and so we'll see how that goes. I anticipate that will go just fine. Any questions on the general fund report?
I had a couple. So other objects, that seems like it's up significantly. So what types of expenses would fall under that?
Other objects are going to, some good examples of other objects are going to be county auditor and treasurer fees. It's miscellaneous is really what it is. And in most cases, you're forced into it, that particular expenditure in the general fund. That's the only place that it really fits. I can actually get you a detailed report.
I was just curious, just
Yeah.
because again, it's up kind of significantly.
Yeah.
So I was just curious.
So and that's not a problem. I can shoot that one out by object pretty quickly and just look at it and see, what is causing that this year. Yeah, we're doing better than planned in some others. So, and I always like to look at those because you never know. Did somebody happen to code one object one way to the other? It happens, and it happens in every district. So, and at the end of the day, if it's all general fund, it doesn't, it doesn't stop the earth from spinning. But we do like to make sure everything's correct. So, and I'm not finding huge problems. I mean, once in a while I'll find something's not quite the way it's supposed to be, and we fix it and move on. But other than that, it's flowing pretty good. The close on the books was just as good as the previous month. Mackenzie getting right in there. She probably did it just a little faster than she did the first month. So that's good to see. A lot of consistency there, and so that's appreciated. And we certainly let them know. Cash summary. And how are we looking on the cash summary report? And again, this is going to be your beginning balance, your month-to-date receipts, year-to-date receipts, month-to-date expenditures, year-to-date expenditures, fund balance, encumbrances, and unencumbered fund balance. What unencumbered fund balance, I mean, what do you have left? And it will give that to you for every fund and special cost center, and it will total it in bold numbers for every fund. And I don't know if this is the format that you necessarily had before. It's a format that I took you to in the first meeting, and that's out of habit. And this is this is exactly the format that DEW likes when they're dealing with the commission, and I've come to like this format rather quickly. Now, the one thing that I was able to do, and my pet peeve on this form, was the numbers would get a little bit whopper jawed if there were too many of them. And so I've been able to eliminate that by reducing the description. Now the counterpoint of that is some of your descriptions are going to go a couple rows when you do that. But I thought that was a fair trade-off, so that our numbers are right where they need to be when we're looking across the page. So again, if we see negative numbers, we start to ask questions. As I mentioned before, the 019s, we've got a lot of work to do here as we go through the close process and get things done. Anywhere that we see negative amounts, we're going to be digging in and getting this stuff cleaned up. As I call it, the race towards June 30. And in my world, that's really the race towards about June 25th is where I'd like to be. And that's because it's just good to be done, and it makes July 4th a lot more fun if you're not thinking about coming back to all this fun. So there's nothing particularly alarming in here. I do know we had a reimbursement kickback from ODE. They want some additional information, which we're going to shoot that off to them. I don't anticipate any problem on that. They do that from time to time. That would be Title 6B 5169225. And that also, I believe, is on the agenda for tomorrow. So, any other questions? And that would include the check register. I don't particularly go over those.
So will you be like closing out any of the 019s?
Yeah, I
that
wanna-
are are like of a certain number?
Yeah, you look at those
I mean,
019.
I see some that have like $1.
Yeah, and so.
56 cents.
Right.
And who cares about that? Absolutely nobody, not an auditor, nobody. So, yeah, we've been having those discussions. Yeah, I got 54 cents, $7.28, $1.66, 18.60, 11.08, 11.03. We're gonna look at the titles. The first thing I'm gonna do is look at the titles of these. And what is, and I can go into the financial detail. I think what I'm gonna find in several cases, I bet you I can go back 5 years and find no financial detail on these. So I'm gonna have to rely to a degree on the titles. I see something that says curriculum for $81.40. Well, what did we do in the curriculum area this year? I may ask Mike, or we'll start looking around. Did we have some general fund expenditures in curriculum? I'm sure we did. I hope we did for more than $81.40. So a correcting entry gets made and things get cleaned up, and everybody wants that to happen. You know, you got a STEM grant there. Well, pretty confident we can find 54 cents. You know, so that is a lot of little busy work that we will be getting to. It certainly wasn't the priority walking in the door, but we are getting to the point now and our feet on the ground pretty well that we're going to be blowing through some of this stuff, and hopefully we'll start seeing a little bit different reports going forward. If not April, certainly May. Yeah, I think you guys might hold the record on 019s. That's pretty good. We got almost three pages on the file. That's a lot. But we'll get you cleaned up.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay.
So can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda for the treasurer's report?
I'll move. Kiplinger.
Let me find me. Yeah, let's see. Well, sometimes they end up in some funny spots. Okay, gotcha.
Second.
Any discussion? Will you call roll, please?
Mrs. Leskowitz.
Yes.
Mrs. Butler.
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue.
Yes.
Mr. Beast.
Yes.
Mrs. Kiplinger.
Yes.
Very good.
Good. All right. Thank you. All right. Recommend the board under classified personnel. We've got Nyla Rapova, which would be a food service worker for the middle school, high school. That position, well, that's a new position. And if you remember back when managers had come to me, we had like 711,000 in our food service budget, and we could spend that a little bit. We had to spend it down, obviously, but we could do that with staff. So we have a lot of staff that is missed. We've been some musical chairs in the food service, and so that's a new position, and we also have retirement, so they'll be helping with that as well. And if you look at Mandy Burns, she's a bus driver, 4 hours per day, and also food service worker. Renee Preston will be retiring. She will replace Renee next year. There's some questions about, the bus driver itself. We picked up additional midday routes. We've got special education routes. We've got athletic trips that leave early. So if we don't have people to cover those, we can't get our kids home after school. So that's where she fits in. So she'll be doing both those jobs. And then the classified staff is just Tyler as a substitute custodian when needed. And then resignation, like I mentioned, Renee Preston will be retiring June 30th. And so we will, I think she's been here a very long time. So we will recognize her at the end of the year and Should be going off into the sunset. And that's all I got for
Thank you.
classified.
Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda for classified personnel?
Move.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I had a question. So like for someone like Mandy that has kind of dual roles, do they have a primary role? So like would one, like if there's a conflict, would one role supersede and the other?
No, because their routes are usually, it's 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, and the food service is always in between the routes.
Okay.
So, yeah,
This would actually be recognized as a best practice, because what the board's probably not familiar with is something called the SERS surcharge. And if an employee doesn't make a certain dollar amount, you end up paying additional retirement on it anyways. So, when you do things like this, it certainly reduces that cost overall. So, yeah, if you end up with a bunch of 3-4 hour employees, as opposed to, in this case, what could be, certainly more than that, it helps.
I was gonna ask, is Miss Burns already trained as a bus driver?
yes,
Okay, and all these say effective immediately as soon as, like, have their, FBI.
FBI, BCI, and you approve, yeah, correct.
Any other discussion? Will you take a roll, please?
Mrs. Leskowitz,
Yes.
Mrs. Butler,
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue,
Yes,
Mr. Reese,
Yes.
Mrs. Goodwin.
Yes.
Recommendations for certified personnel?
Thank you. I'd like the board to recommend to the board Chen Ding, 7th to 8th grade ELL teacher. It would be a new position. The point with her is as we experience more and more of our ELL kids, this would be under the recommendation of our ELL coordinator and the staff that we have a position for that grade as well, those 2 grades as well. She also is degree in mathematics. She's very good with math, so she'll push in and pull out for mathematics as well for the ELL kids for math. Like I said, our last projection, we were at 30% ELL students in grades 3 through 5 and 18 through 6 through 8. So, we've got those positions across the district. So that's why that's there. And then Gabriel Waller is recommended for a guidance counselor. We've got her and Shannon would split the 5-8, grades 5-8, same amount of kids as the high school. And I know some people may have a question about that, but I think, there's different needs for different grades. In the high school, they have 2, but, they do a lot with transcripts in college and, college credit, the credit recovery, postgraduate, all the different things high school does. You've got different types of issues with, grades 5, 6, 7, and 8. So that's the recommendation for that as we continue to grow. Resignations, Dana Frank, 2nd grade teacher, has resigned, and Ayla Towns, our art teacher, has resigned. Extended days, the guidance counselors, 15 days, all of them, and Angela 10 days. Angela's doing PSYOP training. If you recall, when I got here, there was some confusion about that. She'll be putting together the PSYOP training at the beginning of the year. That's what they had last year. That's what they said they needed, and that's what's recommended. Substitute teacher list, the same every month. We do this on the Miami County. They will no longer do it next school year. We'll do it directly in-house with ASOP. And then that's it.
Thank you. Could I get a motion to approve the consent agenda for certified personnel?
I'll move. Donahue.
I'll second. Kisslinger.
Any discussion?
So I had a question. So with the guidance counselor, so how many guidance counselors will there be in 5-8 then?
2.
2? And are the numbers then similar to the number of students being serviced by the high school as well?
Correct.
Okay. And then what about the elementary? Is there,
There's 2 at the elementary.
and there's 2 in it, so it's all pretty equal as far as the numbers go?
Right. And we have 1 social emotional counselor that's 5 through 12, just so you know. That was here when I got here. But she deals with different types of things,
Mhm.
so she's been busy.
And just to follow up, were these posted on the Dayton Consortium, or do you know?
Where we got them, is
Where-
that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of where we.
Yeah, Nyla's was on the Dayton Consortium. Mandy's Tyler's on the Dayton Consortium. It looks as if Mandy's came directly to us. And Chen, and I'm not sure exactly where that came to it, because the ELL and principals interviewed him, the same as Gabriel. I don't know exactly where the resumes came from, or applications, but that's what I've got.
Thanks. I just want to make sure everybody has a equal chance, fair opportunity to apply for the positions.
Well, we only had 2 people apply for one of them, so it's not like we've
It's early.
got a
still.
lot to pick from some days.
It's early still. But thank you.
Yep.
Any more? Anything else? You call roll, please.
Mrs. Leskowitz,
Yes.
Mrs. Butler,
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. D,
Yes.
Mrs. Goodwin.
Yes.
Next, we have the board policies.
So the policy that the officers' agendas I know that this was on the February, we talked about this at the February 18th board meeting. And we had pulled certain ones off. And then I know the policy committee had met and they said the ones that were pulled off, with the exception of cell phone and some of those, a couple of others that we still are going to work on. I was told to go ahead and put those back on. So the ones that came from Rachel, that was your emails, to go ahead and put those back on. So the ones that came out of that committee, we said to put back on. So those are the ones that are back on. We're still going to craft, obviously, the cell phone policy. So, and how we're going to store the phones and things like that. So that's a whole nother, and we'll get it done. And I think it's a good idea. But those are the ones that went back on. The Edgar policies, those are the federal grants and whatnot. Basically, if you don't agree with that, you don't get the money. You can test some of that. Probably you won't hear that, but that's the policy. The student activity trips, like I said, about the football camps at higher ground, it's overnight. It's the same deal as always. We always get those approved when they're overnight stays. Ticket prices and sports passes, the information's in there regarding, those are just standard ticket prices for the TRC moving into next year. Donations, like I think Julie Reese for a donation for the Bethel Disney trip. Volunteers, we've got Jeremy Bowden with the volunteer drama advisor. And then one of the most important things, in my opinion, on this list is the graduates. I need you to approve the graduates, because in fact, you guys don't do that, they don't graduate. Everything else is ceremonious, but this is important. So, and that's what I have.
Thank you. Could I get a motion to approve the consent agenda for business items?
I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, please. Just in general, how many graduates are there? I didn't get to count them. You have 'em memorized?
I do not, Natalie.
Well, I can't. I did a quick
Oh.
click on it, but I wanted to say it was like
130,
130. Oh, I thought it was more than that.
162. I've seen a lot of different numbers, different grades.
It's okay.
Somewhere between 160 and 100. Yeah, 160, I think. Is what I
Definitely
think.
3 digits now.
Yeah. I don't remember though.
Okay.
It went 3 days before you passed 1300.
Okay, that was the easy one. On the policies, I just want to make sure, so the ones that are on here are considered this is the second reading?
Correct. We had the first one in February, then they went to committee and into the policy committee. And a couple of them we kept off, but these are the ones I was told to put back on that they cleared the committee. And I looked and we met with Neola.
Okay. And then in that case, I just wondered why in the code we said tabled after the number. Do you remember what that means?
Where's it at?
At the top, under the, code at the top, it has the like PO 0152 tabled. And then the status is well, draft, but that's why I was asking if I didn't know if there was any other revisions on here after the policy committee looked at them. So that's why.
So the policy committee looked at them and I asked the same questions that Julie asked and I was told that we needed to put those items in the running of the board policies and not these policies, because that was my question as well. That, you know, about the officers and the running of the meeting and stuff. So I was vetoed on that. I was told that we had to adopt these as they were. And that we could revise our policy of this policy, basically. So that there's a little backstory.
Okay, thank you. That's what I was trying to figure out if this had been,
Now they do it, once you approve the second reading, then we send them back to Neola, they clean them up and put them where they need to go in board docs.
So the way that this was presented was this is like an umbrella policy. And then underneath this umbrella policy is our policy where we say, when we do the agenda, the way we do the agenda is that the president, superintendent, and any other board member that wants to include something on the agenda can do so.
and then where does it say that?
It's in our administrative guidelines.
Because it used to just say it right here,
I agree.
and then there was no, have to go look it up anywhere
Correct.
else.
And it wasn't,
Okay.
it didn't seem contradictory.
Okay.
And that's, so,
And that was, I think you led right to my other
Mhm.
question, because the organizational meeting was removed. So now I gotta go look at somewhere else to find what that is about. And
In the guideline,
it's in the guideline and, sorry. Or is it under one of these other cross references here?
well, I mean, if you want to pull them, I didn't know there were all these questions, so,
Well,
I mean, till today.
Eh.
I mean, we've had these for a while now, if they've got these questions, we could pull them, we can have the discussion, but.
I think it was just clarification.
yeah, I was just trying to understand because it says draft and it says tabled. I didn't,
They table, like, you know, as Mark tells me, when they work through Neola, they will table and work on in their draft mode, they're working on them, and then when they come out of the second reading, they take all that off. But, I mean, policy, guidelines is how we administer policy. And we've had that conversation before. Earlier
Right.
on in the school year about, you know, the guidelines, that's kind of like what we do here, right? That's kind of where I live in the guidelines area. Policies, policy.
So I think what we need to do is once we adopt these policies, then we need to go back and make sure that our guidelines have the words in it that we are looking for as far as how we actually do things.
Yeah, and I think that's a great segue into our meeting on the 30th, and Mark will be here with Neola. And I think that's a good time to have that conversation. Agreed.
and that was gonna be my other question. Will the policy committee work that piece of the guideline crossover, if you will, or transfer
Sure.
of information, or will?
Because we got a meeting on the 30th with Mark. The Neola rep. At 4:30, right? 4:30. I think it's 4:30
It's 4:30.
on the
And then-
30th.
Of April?
Yeah.
Oh,
Correct.
and that will be with the policy committee?
That is the Kamal's policy committee meeting. That's
And
our
our
scheduled
Neola
meeting.
rep. Make sure we got everything we need in it.
Okay,
But yeah, we go, I mean, obviously, we can look at guidelines and policy. Which makes sense.
yeah, I'm just trying to understand the process because
Well, there's a lot of them. I mean, there's a lot of policy too. I mean, in your defense, I mean, we were extremely behind when I got here on policy. We're trying to get caught up, but
yeah,
we were way behind.
I'm sorry, I'm just gonna check, Okay, I guess that was all my questions, I think. Thank you.
Thank you.
So
Oh,
sorry.
Okay.
I had a question. So on the student activity camp, so it talked about eligibility and it said it wasn't an issue because it was summer. So I'm curious though, when students are coming into the fall, isn't their eligibility used from their
Wow.
last quarter? So, I mean, that was kind of glazed over. I would just want to make sure that, I mean,
I think
if a
camp,
student is not eligible, then I think that they're not eligible.
this is a camp and I don't, my past experience over the years, we don't necessarily exclude kids from camp, if you will, because it's just camp. But if it was a OHSAA activity, then they'd be held to the requirement of GPA. But since it's camp, it's not a recognized OHSAA sport.
And I think, doesn't this one do like leadership skills and teamwork
It does a
and
bunch of
a lot of
different,
different things,
Bunch of
more
different
so than
things,
just
yeah.
how to play football?
maybe it would help those kids that were struggling. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, that would be why. That's the only thing I can think of, Rachel.
I was just curious because it was addressed as a question in the form that was filled out, but basically it just said it's summer. There's no, so.
Yeah, I mean, we would, like I said, it wouldn't preclude these kids from participating in the camp. Maybe they'll learn something, maybe they'll better themselves, but if there was a recognized athletic event, they'd have to have the GPA.
And really, the sports season doesn't start till 1st of August anyways, right? Is that right?
Yeah, there'll be, I think football practice starts the end of July.
End of July.
Right, but the true, whatever they can start true practices, they can just condition in July, right? But 1 August is when they can, no kidding, then they start practicing. for
Yeah, they
the
wouldn't
actual
start to check
season.
GPAs until
One-
they make
after
it
1
I just
August.
think that it's an incentive, as you finish out the school year for those students that, look, you still have to be eligible to be able to go, so that, again, to incentivize them that maybe those that are on the bubble, to really, do what they can to try to get that eligibility up so that they can be a part of that. I understand what you're saying. I mean, you could argue either side. I'm just saying that. I think
And I
that
don't know
it
if any
can't
of them
be
wouldn't be eligible either. I do, I don't know what their
Correct.
GPAs are, but I mean,
Correct.
I will tell you that I know Chase and Damon have done a very nice, they went above and beyond the minimum requirement this year to make sure that kids have their things turned in. And
Good.
so, I mean, so that's kind of nice. Because if they don't have that in, they don't let them play. So.
Any more discussion? You take roll, please.
Or
Is that where we're at right now? Did we
Yeah.
just consent? We just
Mhm.
discussed?
Yeah.
somehow I marked everybody off. Did we take one? That
We
wouldn't
did
work.
not take one.
We didn't take one.
No, we just
We
discussed.
did it
Okay.
first and a
We did it
second.
first and a second.
I'm way ahead of everybody.
Take us home now, yeah.
We are on certified, right?
B,
Eight.
8, recommendations, business.
Right.
Oh, okay, well, that's
recommendations.
fine. Yeah, I'm back on the previous one, right there. Oh, here it is, yeah. It is first and second, and I had not taken. roll call yet. I gotta look at the right page. Mrs. Leskowitz.
Yes.
Mrs. Butler.
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue.
Yes.
Mr. B.
Yes.
Mrs. Kiplinger.
Yes.
Thank you. And now the discussion area. So we've got the BEA update.
7 o'clock, Mindy. Look at that.
Oh. I know, it was like an hour and a half earlier.
I know.
Well, state testing's heavy and going on in all buildings. Everything's going pretty smooth considering. I know at the elementary, we have pretty good attendance. We put little incentives into play to get kids to show up on the day of testing, so we don't have to make up testing later, because there's a certain window we have to meet. But with that said, also, I'm on the committee for policy. And policy is, it is the basics. And when they come out from Neola, they go through the laws and everything. And there's another educator on there too, that's well versed also that, you know, we're not going to try and steer us wrong because, you know, we've got to help implement these on our down low when it comes down to the thing, but the policy is the over umbrella, and then how we implement comes from us at the district level. So, you know, that's why you don't tie yourselves in. And it, you know, when you have those committees and if the committee agrees, you know, it should be brought to the board as this is the committee's recommendation. So that's what we need to keep back in our minds is if you're going to involve the community, you want the community involved and they're showing up to do that, then, you know, let's be respectful and listen to what they have to say. And if we're going to bring it to the board, let's keep it that way. Because nobody wants to guide us in the wrong way. I know there's a lot of concern, especially from the staff, is why haven't we broke ground on another building yet? So we'd like to start being proactive instead of reactive and encourage the board, let's get going. We're out of room. Even with the changes being made, there's no room. So, you know, we should have been breaking ground this year. So we're really concerned about that and we really want to see a plan get in place and let's get some ground broken, you know. Our kids deserve it. Our staff deserves it. Our community deserves it. So, as we say, we got to quit twiddling our thumbs and do something about it. And so we really encourage the board to take action on that and let's get moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee reports.
So the Miami Valley CTC, they have they're getting close to graduation as well. Their last day for the seniors is the 13th. The last day for the juniors is May 15th. And then their graduation is Friday, May 16th at 6:30 p.m. at UD Arena. And that'll be all coming up very soon.
Just got that
Couple-
invitation today. That invitation came today.
Two people that were in the tech prep showcase that are from our Bethel students. I just want to highlight them very quickly. The exercise science and sports medicine group A, they finished second place, and Bethel student Colden Egbert from Bethel, he was part of that group. And then another person here, go down. Delaney Frank, she finished in a team. Just trying to find it here. Her team was the sports medicine team, and she got a second place in that as well. So congratulations to them. And that's really all I had for tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. You're not doing it. We can cross this one off the list, right? The student activities keep coming up.
Yeah, I'm
You just
not,
reach out
yeah,
to-
it doesn't, but I can touch on, we had an academic committee meeting on March 27th. It was during break, so we had 5 people. We had a really great discussion about just about some expectations and things we noticed that might help our students and might be a direction to go to improve availability of electives in the high school, how to get some interesting classes to engage our middle schoolers, and then talking about space in the elementary. But knowing that we had some changes coming up, we just kind of like waited until Mr. Nutter did his announcement about the reconfiguration of the schools. And so we'll have another meeting and start talking about action items at each school that we can start looking at to make recommendations to the board.
Thank you. You want to do technology then too? You want to speak to
We
that?
haven't met.
Okay, done. Facilities committee?
As I noted last week, we met the week prior. We had 8 other people besides Andy and myself, and appreciate them coming out. We worked on the charter for the facilities committee. Have those minutes, need to get them distributed, and that's bad on me. But we will be meeting on May 14th, which is Wednesday, and that'll be at 6 p.m. here in the media center. And Jackie will bring a a list of the appointees from that meeting so that you can, get those announced in the next regular meeting
Okay.
in May then.
Thank you.
That's
Was that for, is that all you had for the?
that's all I'm
okay.
gonna add from last week, yeah.
Policy committee?
Policy committee, again, we met, there were 5 of us at that committee. We got through quite a few things, and our next meeting is the 30th at 4:30. Personally, I don't have a problem just clarifying what we've done, so, and that's just me. Because I think it's just all informational, so, yeah. And, finance have not met.
Thank you. And then do we have any public participation or just general? Nothing, okay. So we do have an executive session. So I would like a motion to go into executive session for the reasons to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of an employer official, or the investigation of charges or complaints against an employee, official, licensee, or well, we don't need that part. Okay. Then G3, to conference with the board's attorney to discuss matters which are the subject of pending or imminent court action. And G4, to discuss preparations for conducting or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with employees. There's a possibility, there's always a possibility that we'll conduct some sort of business after after we come out of executive session. But right now, we don't have any future business anticipated. So could I get a motion to go into executive session for?
I will move. Kiplinger?
I'll second Butler.
Any discussion? Okay, roll please.
Mrs. Leskowitz,
Yes.
Mrs. Butler,
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. V,
Yes.
Mrs. Kiplinger.
Yes.
Are we going
We're gonna
in?
go
Seven
to
oh
the
seven.
conference, right?
7:07.
For the right number, you're coming back, small.
Pardon me?